taught me of a Git. So like I said, I talked about the Git branches. There's also something I missed, which is the Git repository. And the Git repository is where you store your code so that your code is not tied to any particular device in case you lose a device, or so that everyone can even pull from that repository at a time. So I talked about some of the popular providers, GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab. Whenever your developer pushes his code before he creates a pull request, he has to push to one of these repositories. So the branch is the branch out, a new branch, just a branch out of the main or master branch. The repository is where everybody pushes all their branches to. It could be master branch, main branch, it could be a sub branch, add payment to application, fix login bug, it could be whatever branch developer is working on. So the developer pushes it to the remote branch. So I would I'm sharing my screen now and looking at going to Mozilla's account. Mozilla has a couple of repositories around under his account. The repository contains, so your backend has its own dedicated repository, your frontend has a dedicated repository. A lot of services in your company has its own dedicated repository. So looking at it, some of the popular repositories under Mozilla, the PDF.js, Deep Speech, Send, Browser Quest. So these are different repositories. Assuming your company was the owner of Mozilla, or you're working with Mozilla, you would different projects. If you're the project manager for the PDF.js, which is a PDF reader in JavaScript, whenever a change is made, they push it to PDF.js. So I'm just going to open this repository and show you the structure. It's mostly similar for Bitbucket or GitLab, the basic ideas. The UI might be a little bit different. So this is the repository interface. You can see these are all the codes. These are all the codes within it. These are all the files. This is like a file viewer within the GitHub interface. You can see here the Git URL. So every Git has its own dedicated URL that you can use to pull Git or install the Git. That was a mistake. Let me go back. Every Git has its own dedicated URL that you can use to pull Git or install it. Right. You can see the branches. This has only two branches, the master branch and the GH pages branches, updated 1 hour ago by PDF.js bot. So we can even see who updated it because of its Git. We can see who updated all the different files. So so there's something called commit. Commit is, you can read up on it later. I'm not going to do much on it because it's a little bit lower level. I don't want to bore you too much, but commit, before you push your changes, I said I was working on add payments. I can break it down into different chunks, different commits. So it's just at every stage, I want to log that, I've done this part, I've done this part, I've done this part. So commit is a smaller unit of a branch that you merge back. So a single branch, when you're merging it back, can have like 10 commits or 15 commits or just one commit, depending on how it's structured. So the commit has a message attached. For example, if I'm working on add payments to application, a commit could be installed REST API, that's one commit, implemented REST API, added security to REST API. So just the different chunks will now lead up to the general master build. So you can see on this repository as a whole, we have 16,000 commits in total. You can see that in this URL, the last commit was done 6 months ago, 25 days ago. Git is way more complex than this. You don't need to know too much. You can do the research on your own later, but you can just see the time the last commit to this file was made. You can see a fork is when you take a repository and you duplicate the repository, that's called a fork of a repository. So we can see this repository was duplicated 8,900 times, 8.9k times. Let's go to the part you're looking at, which is pull requests. So issues first. So this is an issue. If it's a public pull request, you can see if it's a public repository rather, you can see some issues that have been created already. The possibility to show password, repeated fields. These are issues that different people are working on, that different people have stated that they've added using this library. You now have pull request here. So go to your repository, request for the repository with the developer, from the developer, and go to the repository. And you'll see the pull request there. Or tell him to send the link to the pull request he has created. And when you see it, you can see the list of pull requests that exist are waiting to be made. So you know that, okay, the developer has done his own part. Now, some pull request contains comments. So it might be that another developer has made some comments on this pull request that made it that you could not, nobody merged it to master branch. Remember I talked about the branching, you make a pull request on the branch. So some other developer might have made the comments on it that, oh, you have to fix this thing is not correct, this thing does not work. So if someone has done that and that's what's blocking the flow, you have to refer back to the developer that created the pull request and say, oh, bro, or sis, something is wrong here. You have to fix this issue, right? If him or she has not seen it. If him or she has not seen it. So looking at one of the pull requests, let me look at this fixed integration test page. This is a pull request opened 3 days ago. Let's see. Opened 3 days ago by this guy, Calix Teman. So let me open it. So you created a pull request. You can see all the commits, just one commit. right? Let's see the files that were changed. Another thing you have to know. So these are the ones you see in green typically, or with the plus, are the new files that the new developer added to the code base. And the one you see in red or minus, with the minus sign here, are the files that are the code, are the lines of code that the developer deleted. Let me take it again. The one you see in the plus or green usually are the lines of code that the developer added, and the one you see in the minus are the lines of code that the developer removed. So just do a quick test where you work, request for a pull request, and go through it. This interface should be similar to this. You will see what code has been added and what code has been removed. Then now let's see if there are any comments on it. Go to conversations. And you can see from it, there's a comment, failed output, success. So there isn't any real comments on this. Okay. This integration test sadly fails pretty much all the time now, but only on Windows somehow. Should you perhaps disable it on Windows only? So people are still making banters on the pull request. So no one is going to merge it because there are still banters going on the pull request. If this is a product that needs to go live and the developer tells you that my pull request is still being reviewed, and there are some comments on it, you can go and look at it and to have more context. What are the comments I'm making, and try to explain this to the developer or try to resolve any issue. Usually, you should not need to do this. They can do this among themselves. But now you understand how pull requests should almost never be a blocker to your project. So this is it about pull requests. To really get more understanding of this, talk to your developer, get the developer in your company, talk to him, and tell him to walk you through a pull request that he has made for a project. And if developers in your companies don't use Git yet, I would heavily advise that you introduce them to Git and tell them to get up on it and get them to start integrating it. See you in the next content. Bye.